Hi and welcome. So, in the previous episode, we talked about booleans and conditionals. So, conditionals are essentially just if statements, well, largely if statements. So, if something is true, then do this, but if something is false, then do that. So, let me boot up the server again. I'm going to do that by pressing Ctrl tilde up and enter, since that was the last command I remember entering. Then I can control click here and open the server. I'm going to hide this by pressing Ctrl tilde again. Okay, in this new episode we're going to talk about arrays. So I have a bit of programming experience. Arrays are essentially collections of things. So for example, if I have more than one book, over here it will be books, and we go here, and by the way, there's a typo in the last this thing. It should not be you have read the book, you have read just the book. Then the alchemist, for example, then the godfather. So this is a list of books. You have to open a square bracket like this, close the square bracket, and enter each individual book as a string, which is essentially characters between two inverted commas, and separate everything with a comma. So first book, second book, third book. Let's see if that's what he teaches us today.
All right, so check this out. At this point, you should be pretty comfortable with creating variables for primitive strings and numbers, right? Name equals John Doe, age equals 25. But now, what about when the variable should contain, so to speak, a collection of things, like a list of your favorite books? How exactly would we do that? I'll show you how.
Amazing. He just took the example that I gave you. Great.
All right, so let's say you want a section of your website for recommended books. So maybe you'd have an unordered list. And just for fun, I've chosen 3 different books from 3 different decades that I would actually recommend. And I'll show you these. So we have from Philip Dick, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? This is what spawned Blade Runner. It's very interesting, makes you think. Next, this was, Stephen King, The Langoliers. This was originally a short story in one of his compilation books. I don't remember which one it was, but then they extracted it into its own release. Super, super good. Imagine waking up in a plane and 90% of the people on the plane have disappeared, but the plane didn't land. They try to figure out what happened there. And then finally, of course, from this decade is Hail Mary, which is one of the best books I've read in many, many years. Okay, so let's say we have those 3 books. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Next up, we have The Langoliers. And then finally, Hail Mary. Okay, so now our job is to make this dynamic. Remember, in real life, things like this will often be stored within a database. Mm-hmm. Here's John's recommendations, or here's Sarah's recommendations. All of those are stored in a database. So yeah, how would we do this? Well, once again, we could open up PHP directly within our body tag. And yeah, what would be a good variable name for our list of books? Well, I said books, right? So why don't we call it books? But yeah, at this point, we've learned that we can do things like this, but I instead wanted to represent many book names. Mm-hmm. So what do we reach for in that case? And the answer is an array. So think of an array as the programming equivalent of a folder. It's a way to take a group of things or a list of things and put them together in a folder. And then if
I love that analogy. Absolutely love the analogy. So, in fact, I'm going to remove these things. Most of them anyway, but I'll add a closing PHP tag. I think I messed up. PHP doesn't have arrays like this. This is the Python or JavaScript way of doing arrays. But let's see what the correct way of doing it. This might be wrong.
If you want to move all of those things from one place to another place, you just pick up the folder and you carry it, right? The same basic principle is true for arrays. I create an array using this notation. Open bracket, closed bracket. Now I can store each of these titles as strings. There's one. Next, the Langoliers. And then finally, Hail Mary. All right, cool. So now I have a single variable that represents a list of recommended books. The next step is to loop over that list and for each item, display a list item that includes the name of the book. So here's how we do that in PHP.
Well, turns out it's correct. This is not wrong. So this is, because I've seen people do things like this. I don't know if they're called named arrays or something. So it's something like name is this, something like this. I don't know what, the editor is yelling at me, so obviously I'm wrong. Yeah, I'll add that back here. Name. Is this correct? Yeah, it is correct. Cool. So I've seen people do something like this, but maybe we'll learn about that later. In fact, I want to change this to some books that I actually recommend. Shantaram is one of my favorite books. It's a story of an Australian ex-convict who comes to Mumbai and gets involved with some not so nice people and finds love and understands the meaning of life and perseverance. It's quite philosophical and beautiful that way. And the other book that I like is The Power of Now. You can tell I enjoy non-fiction a lot. So Shantaram is one of my favorite fiction books, but I read a lot more of non-fiction. The Power of Now is about, it's a meditative book by Eckhart Tolle. It's very spiritual. Art of Thinking Clearly is a list of tips to help you identify thought patterns where you're not thinking clearly and then help you correct them. So those are some of my book recommendations.
Let's do this. Open up PHP and I will say for each books as, and now when I'm looping over this array, how do I want to represent or refer to each item?
Okay, let's give this a shot. I think we can do this. I wanna say H1 recommended books. I need to go to an unordered list and list item. But for each, right? So I am out of PHP mode. Let me enter PHP mode again. PHP. Now I want to say for each books as book. I wanna have a list item which says why is it yelling at me? I don't know. Book. Will that work? I don't think it will because it's yelling at me. Let's try that though. Let's see what happens. Error. Okay. Oh, maybe I forgot to close this. Oh, I have to echo. Sorry. Is that right? I think this should work. Maybe. It did. I don't like the huge gap here though. I don't know why that is. Place items center. Sensitive. Is it because of this margin? 0. No. It's in middle. Watch me debug this live. I'm okay with this, in fact. Can I do place item center anyway? Is it CNTRE or CNTER? Is it flex? Huh. You know what? I'm going to get rid of credit. I'm okay with this not being centered vertically. Yeah, this looks okay to me. I like this. I'll in fact do away with the margin 0 as well. I usually almost never. Why do I need place item center then? Yeah, I almost never use raw CSS. I almost always use something like Bootstrap or Tailwind. I love Tailwind these days. Let me just simplify this right now over here. Cool. So I guess this worked. Echo this. But I bet he's going to show you a different way. Let me explain what this did though. Firstly, let me open up chat. Doc chat. Yeah, so in case you guys want to talk to me, it's over here. And can I put this always on top? No, I don't want to put this entire thing always on top. I just want to put this on top. Anyway, let me just explain this to you. So what's happening is for every book over here, I want PHP to call it a singular item book. This is by convention, so this could be anything. So I could call this John, for example, and I could rename this to John, and I'll rename this to Stacy. Obviously this is absolutely bad naming convention, but I hope this helps you understand, and I'll add this just to show you that it works. So tell me a popular book, something like Things Fall Apart. That's a nice book as well. Okay, see, it still works even though the names are completely messed up. So I did this on purpose to explain what's happening under the hood. So this is a list of books. So I'm going to change this back to BOKS, and this I can change back to books as well. Okay, now this can be anything, but what's understood is this is a single entry of whatever this array is, whatever this collection or whatever this folder is. So a single books entry in books is probably a book, and therefore echo out a book between individual list items. So how many ever books there are over here, echo them out. So to show you that this worked again, I'm going to add another book. Let's say the Spider-Man. Yeah, let's just say Spider-Man. I was going to say Talkative Man. I love that book, but niche reference. Cool, Spider-Man. So there's 5 books here, 5 books here. I don't like that there's 2 S's, one word S's here. So I'm going to change this to catch 22. I think it's catch dash 22. Yeah. There you go. Cool. So this is how it works. I hope changing the variable name to something else helped you understand this. Let's see if I was correct.
Item within that array. Well, how about name or book? Anything you want. Singular is fine. And then just like with conditionals in the last episode, we open up braces. Okay, and I'll close PHP at the bottom. So now the way this works is, for however many items we have in this array, I will trigger all of the logic that is contained between these braces. So if you want to pause and think to yourself, well, how many times will I, let's do this, echo a list item that says hello. Okay, so if I were to run this in the browser, pause for a second and think, how many hellos will I see?
I know the answer. Do you? I think he'll see 3 hellos, one for every single book in the list of books. So it'll say hello, hello, hello.
Okay, well, as you can imagine, we will see 3 hellos. Let's come back, give it a refresh, and sure enough, I get 3 because there's 3 items here.
Let's go.
If I were to add another one here, then of course we would loop over it 4 times and we'll have 4 hellos. All right, so let's bring this back. And now let's replace the text here with the name of the book. So I'll show you a couple ways to do this. We could once again use concatenation. So in this case, I'm saying, okay, I want to render a list item and then the name of the book and then a closing list item. And that should in fact do the trick.
Although, why would you want to do that? There's so much extra syntax. We can just remove all of that and put the whole list item within double inverted commas like I have. But I bet he's going to show you an even simpler way. Let's see.
Pretty cool. But of course, as we learned an episode or 2 ago, we could also just inline all of this. I could say echo, open a list item, then do the name of the book, and then close it all in one go. Come back, refresh, and very good.
Good.
But now a quick little note. I don't know if we covered this, but imagine for whatever reason, you need to add that little trademark symbol at the end of the book name, something like that. But notice how my editor immediately starts complaining at me. And that's because now it's trying to find a variable called booktm, and of course that doesn't exist. So yeah, of course the issue is I want that tm to occur immediately after the name of the book. So I could add a space here, but in this situation, I don't want that. I don't want a space between it. So what do we do in situations like this? Well, of course, you could reach for concatenation, or you'll often see this in the wild. You can wrap the name of the variable within braces, and that sort of silos the variable. Nope, this is the thing that I want you to render, and then everything after it will not be included as part of that variable name. So this would be a way that we could solve it.
This is so amazing. This is so, so useful. So if I was to take this and do something like this to it, let's see. Okay, let's go. Let's go. The Art of Thinking Clearly is a good book. Yeah. Okay, this is fun. This is fun. How do I, if I had to put this within inverted commas, can I do this? I don't think so. Is it this? Hey, what did I do? Yeah, it's this. So if I do backslash comma, it escapes it, I think. Okay, let's see that. Okay, so that's how you, so what I did here was I wanted this to be between inverted commas, but if I do that here, it'll essentially just end the string over here and it'll give me an error because this is nothing. PHP doesn't understand this. So I changed that. to this. Now I'm going to go back to what it was originally. I think this is enough. Yeah.
All right, just a little aside, but something you should be aware of. For now, I'll bring it back to book. Looks good. Okay, so for little examples like this, what we've come up with is perfectly fine. But yeah, as you can imagine, in some situations, your list item will contain its own set of HTML. Maybe it houses a div with headings and a sublist and anchor tags and things like that. And I think what you'll find is when you start trying to render all of that as part of an echo string, as you can imagine here, very quickly it starts to get super messy. So for this reason, there is a shorthand for loops, and I'll show you how it looks. Let's start from scratch. Open up PHP, and yeah, for each books as book, but this time, instead of opening up a curly brace, we're going to use an alternative syntax, sort of a shorthand that you will mostly see when working with views or HTML, as you see here. And that shorthand or alternative syntax is a colon. Okay, so let's close PHP so that I can return to HTML. Hello there. And then we need some way to delineate where the end of the for each should occur. So at the very bottom, I will open up PHP again and write end for each. All right, so if we switch back, we should...
This is so good. This is so exciting. I told you there's probably a different way, a better way to do this. Now, why this is better is because, as he described, what if there are a lot of classes? So, for example, if I was using something like Tailwind, class equals, I don't know, what is it? PG green or something like that. So this won't work because I haven't installed Tailwind here, but what if there's lots of complicated code over here? Then this might not be elegant, it might not be obvious. So instead, what we can do here is yeah, I like this a lot. Just close the PHP here. And instead of doing this, and I will close the for each loop here. And for each. Lots and lots of syntax, but let's see if this works. To check that, I'm going to add yet another book. Let's say The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. And this should be a comma over here. Did that work? No, it didn't. Because it doesn't know what book is. Interesting. And there's also an extra this thing here. Oh, because of this. How do I get this to work? Will this just work? No, because I'll need to enter into PHP mode again. This won't work either, probably. Yeah, it doesn't. Let's see.
Should once again get 3 hello there's, and we do. Okay, so I think you'll find whenever you need to build up complex HTML fragments, this alternative syntax for each is 100% the way to go. And yeah, it's not limited to for each. You can also use it for conditionals. It's the exact same syntax. Okay, so now let's just update this by opening PHP, echoing out the book name, and if I switch back and...
Yep, called it. In fact, I don't think I need to do even that. Will it work if I just do this, the alternative syntax that he shared in the previous lecture? Book. Will this work? I'm combining two. I think it should. All right, let's go. Let's go. Let's go. This worked. See, some fresh new information. Dude, this is so dope. I love this. Amazing. So you guys remember at the end of the previous stream, he taught us, not previous, maybe 1 or 2 streams ago, he taught us about this as an alternative to echo, and here we are already implementing it. So good.
Refresh, we're good to go here. But also don't forget, you learned about short echo tags, right? So you could instead just say equal book and then close it out, and that would work as well. And once again, this is the approach that I would usually take. So give it a refresh and we still get the same thing. All right, so you're making pretty good progress now. You've now learned that a variable can house, so to speak, a collection of things. And that's specifically what an array is for. It's for containing a collection of things. Maybe that collection could be names, a collection of names. It could be a collection of numbers. It could be a collection or list, if you prefer, a list of usernames, a list of book names, a list of popular tweets. Anything like that could go in a primitive array. And then you use the for each syntax to loop over each item within that array and proceed however you need to.
You got this, laracast.com. I love this, laracast.com. Please just go subscribe. Amazing people. This entire course is for free. It's an 11-hour course. I've linked it in the description if you want to follow it along. Please go and subscribe to Laracast and like the video. Like his video. Jeffrey's put in so much love and effort into teaching this. And I want to quickly recap what we learned today. So we learned about arrays, which is essentially this. If I embiggen this a little, arrays are essentially this. So a list of books over here. In fact, I can probably do this. Okay, so we have a list of books. And I should probably do this on another line. Yeah. Did that work? Okay, cool. Then we have a PHP block where we loop over the entire array, meaning the entire list, the entire collection, the entire folder, however you want to call it. Technically, it's called an array. So the folder or the array that we want to loop over is called books. And every single item in that array, we're going to call a book. We can again call this whatever. Joey, Stacy, Emma, Mary, whatever it is, but this needs to just be Mary. And if I update this to show you that it worked, I'll add another book here. Let's say Hatching Twitter. It's another non-fiction book, favorite of mine. It tells you the story of how Twitter was created. There you go, Hatching Twitter. So this could be anything, but for consistency we call it book because it is a single item, a book. And then we end the loop. So for enter PHP mode, for each, do this in a list item. You can do whatever you want with your fancy HTML over here. Then essentially just echo out the individual book item, the individual item here from the array list of items. And then close the for loop, for each loop over here. And that's how arrays work in PHP. Thank you again for watching, and come back later for continuing to learn PHP with me. Alright, hope this was useful. Take care.